Okay, so we're approaching Rosh Hashanah, and oftentimes people approach Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur with a great deal of trepidation. And there's a reason for it. So let me ask you, last year Rosh Hashanah, could you have imagined what this year held? I don't think anybody could have. So the trepidation, in terms of this, that everything is unpredictable, nothing could be known beforehand, is real. However, and this is a huge however, whatever has to happen not because of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Whatever has to happen because of the lives we're leading. So let's understand this better. We're all drawn to light. When you ask a young child, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do they say? What is a little girl, a little boy, what do they say? What do you want to be? You're 4 years old, you're big, you go to gun. What do you want to do when you're big? What do they say? Fireman, policeman, soldier, nurse, doctor, teacher, right? They want to do something big and important and positive. So the reason that's so is that Hashem implanted something of himself in us, and that part of us is drawn to light. So the need for light is there for every person, non-Jews as well as Jews, societies as well as people. And when you look at individually, when you look at societies, what they sell in their ideology is that they're light bringers. However, we also have the possibility of blocking light. We do things as individuals, as a society, in the world, where the light doesn't change, but we do things that block it. So on Hashem's side, he does make judgments once a year. Okay, what's the judgment? The judgment isn't, There was, by the way, a Protestant preacher who used to really, I was listening to someone reading his speech just today, 200 years ago, a Protestant preacher. You're like little bugs in the hands of the Lord. He's going to throw you into the fire because of, okay, that's not what we're saying. In case, what we are saying is that the worst thing that could happen is a person is so blocked or a society is so blocked that there's nothing they could do further. So challenge is what unblocks us, and we've seen this in this war. Have we seen people who rose to enormous heights because of the challenges that they faced? We've seen this. We've seen this in the level of self-sacrifice, the level of caring. We've seen this again and again and again and again. Okay, so I'll just share one thing with you, and then I'm going to tell you why we're going to be learning the Vidui. So there's a young man in our neighborhood who, lo aleinu, lost both legs and part of one arm in the war. And from the very beginning, he was saying, as long as I have my head, it's okay. I'm still a person. And one of the important Rabbanim of our time, some of you may have heard of Rav Asher Weiss. Okay, he went to visit him. And the young man said, I have a question for you. Now you be the Rav. What do you think the question would be? Why did this happen to me? I'm not a terrible person. It's not what he said. He said, what am I supposed to do about Hanachas Tefillin? That was his question. That's what looking for light means. That's what it is. And we could rise to this. And people have asked questions similarly, with less drama, throughout the whole year. Who should I be in this situation? So, returning to the higher self is what tshuva means. So as you're familiar with, there are 3 basic steps in tshuva. The first one is saying where I am now is not where I want to be. I want more. That's what the first step, which is called charata, regret, is about. So Maral goes as far as saying, the higher you are, the stronger your ability to say, I don't want only this, I want more, will be. A person who's all the way down, think of somebody who's, let's say, a real lowlife, the kind of guy you read about in the paper every so often, man found grabbing purses from elderly women, him. He's not ashamed because he has no expectations from himself. So step 1 is to believe in yourself enough to have expectations. Step 2, which is the step we're going to speak about, is being able to say, But there are blockages. We have to be honest with ourselves. But there are blockages. And then we say, but you, Hashem, can get rid of them. You can unblock where we've created blockages. And this is what tshuva is about. Now, the problem we have is we don't always believe in it. Intellectually, you believe in it. But emotionally, the past is real. What do you mean you'll unblock it? Let's say I humiliated someone publicly. Could I unhumiliate them? Let's say at a bad moment, I ripped somebody off in a real estate deal. I can't undo that. So what's tshuva about? The past is the past. So the truth is, you can't undo the past. You could be a person who has no further relationship to doing what you did in the past. So this is called disassociation. And Hashem regards you as the person you become, not the person who you were. The damage is real. And sometimes you could alleviate the damage, and sometimes you can't. You're supposed to try to, obviously. But what this step, which is Vidui, is about, is being able to say, this isn't, oh, this is who I am. No, this is who I don't want to be. So it's a statement of affirmation and a will for light. So with this, I want to take you through the Vidui. You have the pages. Okay. So the first one you'll see is al chet shechatanu lefanecha ba'ones. The word chet, there are different words for sin in Hebrew. It's so Jewish, isn't there? In English, you say sin, one word. In Hebrew, you have chet, avon, pesha, like, welcome to the religion where this, whatever. Okay. A chet literally means missing the mark. Even in modern Hebrew, if somebody misses the mark, it's lachto et hamatara. So this means there's something we did that missed the mark. We don't want this. This isn't where we're headed. So the first one is ba'ones. Ones means, but through no fault of mine, I was forced into this. Now, if you're forced into something, if you're really forced into something, you're not accountable. So I'm going to give you an example. You're standing on top of the 18th floor by the window. You're just looking at the birds, saying, wow, they chirp, or whatever. And somebody else, two people are having a fight. One of them pushes you out the window. You land on a third person. They die. You live. Okay. So you can say it's not my fault, and it's true it's not your fault. So this is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about genuine onus. We're talking when a person says, I had no choice, and it really means I had no choice whereby I could do exactly what I want to do and still get what I want. But okay. So I'll give you an example of I had no choice. Even in minor things. A minor one. Okay, you're in Yerushalayim. The way to get on the bus is with the Rav-Kav. You can't pay to get on the bus. It's not possible. You left your Rav-Kav home. Said, look, I have no choice. Odds are the inspector won't get on. Okay. And, you did have a choice. What was your choice? Go home. Walk. Embarrass yourself and ask someone who you don't know on the bus, do me a favor, punch me and I'll give you some change. You had choices. None of them were comfortable. None of them were the choices that you like. And later you say to the inspector, I had no choice. Like, I couldn't go home. It's too far. What am I supposed to do? Okay. But you did have a choice. It just wasn't a comfortable choice. So when you say that, ideally you're looking back at the times where you made choices that were cowardly. So there's going to be a whole list. You could see it's not a 1,000-page list. Nobody here is like 8 years old that we could have little lists with only a few things. It's 2 pages. But the idea of these 2 pages is to try to get the root of the traits that we have that we want to refine. Okay, the next one. Okay, the next one that goes with ba'ones and some nusachot is baratzon, and I wanted to do it. Here's one that's very relevant to everyone. Beli da'at. I didn't know. Is it my fault that I didn't know? Maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. So you're all familiar with the famous case in the Talmud of the Tinok Shenishba. You know the Tinok? So here's the Tinok Shenishba. There was a kid. He was kidnapped by the Babylonians and taken to Santa Monica. So he grew up in Santa Monica, went to public school, and then went to the Babylonian University of California, UCLA. So he doesn't really know that much about observing mitzvahs until there's some kind of discovery weekend, and before you know it, the guy in Aish convinces him to come to Israel, and, okay. Now, was he accountable for all of the Trefiat, Shabbos, something he broke? No, because he had no choice but to not know. Okay, that's why he's called a tinok, just like a baby has no choice but to not know. Okay, now let's look at me. I'll give you an example, a negative example. Let's say I'm saying Birkat HaMazon, and I don't remember if I said Ya'aleh V'yavo on Yom Tov. Maybe it was such a profound religious experience, I don't remember if it happened or not. Okay, so let's say this isn't the third time this happened in the course of my years. It happened before, but I still don't know. Do you say it over? Don't you say it? Okay, that means I chose not to know. Okay, so you have to examine whether you have a hidden agenda, hidden from who? From yourself, to not know. Okay, let's go a little bit further. The next one is Begalui, and in most nusachot it'll say Begalui uveseter, in things that are revealed and things that are hidden. Okay, so there are two extremes here. Are there people who their home life and their business life are totally disconnected? In their business life, they're affable, pleasant, reliable. When they get at home, it's what? They feel at home. Okay, so all the bad midot come out, all of the anger, all of the frustrations. Are there people like this? There are. Is it the opposite also sometimes true? Yeah, there are people who when they're at home, they care about their family, they'll do anything for their family, but when they get out to the world, they're a barracuda. Either way isn't good. Why do people sometimes live two lives? The home life and the other life. Where does it come from? So usually it comes from depersonalizing whoever your victim is. So if it's at home that you could allow yourself to be explosive and angry and whatever, it's because they're supposed to tolerate you. They're there. Okay, and if it's the opposite, they're supposed to watch out because you're there. It's uncaring. So taking this to what it should be, here's the ideal. I will give you an illustration again with myself of something that would not happen to Yaakov Avinu. Okay, so I used to have an answering machine on my phone. Okay, so the answer, this is why children were teenagers. So I'd like a very plain answer, like, you've reached the Hellers, leave a message. Okay? But my kids like things that are exciting and different, like Metropolitan Opera, things like that, or giving the police's number that you're not supposed to have, things like this. Okay, so how many of you remember having teenagers? You have to choose your battles, right? So I decided I'm not going to make a big deal over this. I listen to these ridiculous messages, so I'll erase them and put in a more standard message. And then they would hear my standard message and they would, okay, do theirs, yeah? Mishtachat Yerushalayim, yeah? Okay, so whatever. So this was going on for a long time. Okay, came the day, I erased their message, but I got involved with something else. So the little tape recorder in the phone was recording what was going on in the house. Okay, so you know how people, when you do something really dumb, they're embarrassed to tell you what you've done? Okay, so I never found out how long this was on my machine. But when people would call and I didn't answer, they would get, Zola Kestef! If you worked for a living, you would, okay, got this. This would not happen to Yaakov Avinu. He would speak the same way at home as you would speak to other people. So you have to ask yourself some questions. Okay, next one. B'da'at u'v'mirma, with forethought and with deception. So the Gra points out, as does the Maral, that there are few sins that we do with actual forethought. I want to do the wrong thing. Lying is one of them. No one tells a lie and doesn't know they told a lie. I'm 25. What? Okay. 25 what? Okay. Stone? Okay. So that's so why do people lie? So we're not going to finish the whole, okay, I could see this, but let's try to get whatever we get. Think about, how many of you could say you didn't tell a lie in the last year? See, I knew you were honest, okay? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, 6 months. How many of you could say you for sure didn't tell a lie in the last 6 months? Look how honest you are. Okay. Okay, tell me why people lie. Everybody lies. Why do people lie? Okay, to save yourself embarrassment. That's one reason. What? To save face. Sometimes not to hurt somebody else, in which case sometimes it's actually permitted according to halacha. What else?
Not wanting to face the reality.
So all of the different kinds of lies come down to one thing. I don't like reality. I want my own version of reality. And I want other people to buy my version of reality. I'm not fond of reality. So the problem is that reality is Hashem's signet ring. So that means he's the author of reality. When you create your alternative reality, you're in denial of Hashem's will, of his wisdom, and of the reality he created. So I want you to picture this. Again, I keep giving myself as negative examples, but I'll leave. So you can think, Okay, so when I was in early high school, there was a teacher. Hold on to your chairs. I know this is inconceivable. We didn't like her. Okay. So later I found out she had a very difficult life, but that's a different story. She was very tough. And she demanded that we buy a specific textbook that the school didn't supply. Then she gave us an assignment in the textbook that she told us to buy. Come in the next day, the girls got together during recess, we're not going to buy it. Okay, whatever. Okay, now, I was taller than I am now because I've gotten shorter. I was taller than I am now when I was in late elementary school. I was very tall. I was always in the back row. And in those days, as some of you may recall, they used to have the shorter girls in the front and the taller girls in the back. So she points at the girl in the front row and says, okay, did you do your assignment? And the girl says, no. So she says, why not? So she made excuse, we got to the store, I thought that they stay open till 7, but really they close at 5. Okay. And we got to, I think so, wait a minute, I had it a minute ago, okay? And there was, I got to the store, like my father gave me his card, but they only take cash. Okay. Now by the time they get to me out in Alaska, like they heard 35 excuses. It was getting pretty awful. So she said, did you do your homework? And I said, no. So she said, why not? And I said, because I didn't want to. I really didn't buy the book. So if this was in, like one of these heartwarming stories that you see in Mishpacha, then the answer would be, the teacher was so moved and this was a turning point. No. This was the old days. So the teacher had me go to the principal, in those days, getting a note home to your parents was not good. It's not like today where the parents say, well, what happened? How did you feel? Well, no, for this I pay tuition. For this, okay, whatever. So it doesn't have a happy ending. But I learned that you could survive it. So part of not lying is learning to take the heat. If you do something, you did it. And if it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable. You have to learn to take the heat. When you do, you stay in reality, and you draw closer to Hashem, who's the reality's author. Okay. Next. Next one is Behirur Halev, thoughts of our heart. In a general sense, we're not considered all that accountable to God for thoughts of our heart. But in terms of ourselves, and we're talking about wanting to get rid of the blockages to good, to light. What are some thoughts that block goodness? Envy. Okay, what? Anger. So you have to say, like, even if it doesn't go anywhere, okay, the part of myself that I own most authentically is my mind. Do I like what's going on in my mind? Is this where I want to be? So could you picture somebody does something that offends you, and maybe it was fairly serious, staying up a whole night just reviewing it, and I should have said that, but she said, could you picture this? The tennis game going back and forth and back and forth. Is that where you want to be? So you have choices. Your mind is where you are, and you can choose where you want to be. Did any of you read Natan Sharansky's autobiography? If you did, you'll recall he decided where he wanted to be. He was in prison. When he was finally released, did any of you do you remember seeing the news clip of his release? So he was released, as you recall, in East Germany, and he had to go over a little pedestrian bridge to West Germany. And who's waiting him on the other side? The press and his wife. Who gets him first, the press or his wife? Of course the press. They're much more aggressive. Okay, so one of them said, how does it feel to be free? Do you remember his answer? I was always free. That's who we want to be. We don't want to be tied down to other people's bad choices and review them and eat them up and vomit them out and redefine and psychoanalyze. Don't forget that. It's because of... Okay, whatever. Okay, next. Vidui peh, false confessions. So the word vidui is related to the word hodaya, which means thankfulness. They both mean this is how it is. So sometimes when talking to Hashem or to other people, we'll admit guilt, but we don't really believe what we're saying. So with people, you see this all the time. I'm so sorry. Okay, but like, what could I have done? Well, did you ever ask? Could you ever apologize to someone and end up blaming them? Okay, I'm really sorry, but like under the circumstances, I really don't know what you thought I could have done. Okay, I'm really very, very sorry. Okay, don't go there. Okay, next, bizadon, through plotting, b'chozek yad. Okay, chozek yad means putting events on the ground. Okay, so I'm going to give you again another negative example with me. Okay, you make things happen and the other person has no choice as to the outcome. I'll give you an example and you'll understand it through the example. Many moons ago, I bought a stroller. That should tell you how long this was. Okay, so I bought a stroller from a certain store. When I got it home and I unpacked it from its wrappings, I saw that the wheels were malaligned. So I went back to the store. And the man told me, well, I really can't give you cash back. It has to go back to the manufacturer. This may take several weeks. And I'm not going to give you a different one because then you still have to wait. Okay, whatever. So I got really upset with this. So I thought I was doing something smart. So I stood there with the carriage, and people came into the store. And I said, I bought this here. Look at the wheels. Is that how you want what you buy to be? He's not giving me my money back. He won't give me another stroller. This is what I bought in this store. Okay. How long did it take him to decide it was worth him to give my money back? Yes. 15 minutes maybe. Okay, and I thought I was very smart. Okay, I was so pleased. I could have broken my arm slapping my back. I was so pleased with myself. Okay, and then I made what at the time felt like a mistake. I mentioned my chachma to my husband, and he said, "Why do you think that's mutter?" So well, and he said, "Well, if you have," first of all, there are always two sides to a story. You go to ask a question. You ask a shaila. You go to a rav. You go take him to Okay. I found out I was wrong because I did ask. Okay. His claim that he has to get money back from the manufacturer might be a valid claim, and certainly wrecking his reputation, because who knows how far that's going to go. You can't control words once they're out. So this customer didn't buy, but what about her cousin? Okay, what about her friend who works in Aliyah and puts a big wary of, okay, you don't know where it's going to go. So you have to question sometimes whether when you create facts on the ground, it's right. A fairly common example, do any of you work in real estate? Good, so I won't offend anybody too badly. In real estate, this happens all the time. Your client wants to sell an apartment, and you have a buyer, and you negotiate the price with both of them. And the buyer really didn't want to spend that much money. So you tell them a strategy. You go to the signing. Let's say you're buying the apartment for $250,000. And you say, you know what? Give me $260,000 and we'll sign today. Okay, you're allowed to do that. Most of the time, this is going to work. I hope I didn't ruin your lives. You change the price at the last minute. Either you agree to pay less or you demand more, and usually if it went that far, you'll get away with it. Okay, are you allowed to do that? No. Do people do this every day? All the time. Okay, another one. You rented an apartment, and you're dissatisfied with the landlord's level of responsibility. Things broke, he didn't fix it. So you inform him that you're leaving in May, and you leave in April, and you've already used up the security check, and he's stuck. Okay, clear? People do this all the time, and not just in real estate. So if a person feels justified, they'll create facts on the ground without without hearing that there are two sides to a story. Final example. In Israel, it's extremely difficult to evict someone. Very, very difficult. So given that that's a fact, okay, if people don't pay their rent, you can't get them out of your apartment. And I actually heard this recently. The tenant who wasn't leaving says to me, look, I really don't have money, and my landlady, she's not losing anything. She's okay. She's fixed. So she'll get, so what? So I didn't pay her. Okay. Tov. Next. Okay, tumat tzvatai means impure lips. So this includes all of the sins of blocking the light with your lips. So the Lashon Hara is the obvious one, but what else? What else blocks light? What else could you say? Insults. Negativity. All sorts of negativity. Okay, and false positivity. And lack of positivity. You could have said something encouraging and inspiring. Okay. So all you would have to do is say to a soldier once, how do you know you won't be back there next year? Then you could have done such damage. Could see this? Okay, next. Be Yetzer Hara. So you can say, of course Yetzer Hara. Who else is getting me to do this awful stuff? But here's the trick. Your Yetzer Hara doesn't identify himself. You don't hear it like, do you remember cartoons where you had the bad angel on your shoulder and the good angel? It doesn't work that way. The Yetzer Hara doesn't feel like your Yetzer Hara. It feels like your lawyer. Okay? You need this. Oh, yeah, what will happen? Okay. You have to express yourself. You have to tell, people, or you have to think of you. If you don't nurture yourself, okay, got this, could you see? But it all sounds like it's your Yetzer Tov. Okay. Next. B'yodim u'v'lo yodim, knowing and not knowing. So you're obligated, one of Hashem's midas, as you know, is chanan v'rachum. Soon you'll be saying the Yud Gimel midas harachamim. You're obligated to know what the other person is and what they need. Saying I didn't know isn't good enough. So you may have seen this in the news. There was a terrible case. I don't know where the truth is here. I know only what I read in the news. Of a child who was put in cherem by the other children. You read about this? Children could be very cruel. Okay, so the child was in cherem, no one's allowed to talk to him. This child was not well physically, and he ended up, again, depending on whose story is true, I have no idea, either he wouldn't enter the class because he was so humiliated, or he went out to get a breath of air, whatever it is, he literally died. He literally died. Okay, so children are cruel sometimes, but there were people who might have known about this. You can't act like you don't know. Okay, so the teachers, the staff members, the better children in the class. Somebody didn't know and could have known. Okay, next. The next one is a hard one. Bechachash uvekazav. Chachash is denying something, which is clear. Kazav means disappointing. What kind of disappointing? Disappointing in this sense means you made a commitment to do A, and you were serious when you made it. You weren't lying. This isn't lying. You were going to do it. Now you changed your mind, and you left somebody else holding the bag. So it could be something simple. Let's go to Malcha. Let's go to Yerushalayim, big Kanyon there. And then, it's hot, it's cold. You decide not to go, and the person made their whole calendar work around your commitment. That's kazav. That's small, though. But people do things that are much, much bigger than that. So, again, it's at the time you said it, you meant it, and then later things came up and you just don't want to do it anymore. Okay, most marriage difficulties involve chazav. Nobody marches down the aisle to the chuppah thinking, come see, come sa. It's a good dress, it fits, Nobody, people want it to work. People want it to work. And then things happen. So you have to question how much accountability you have. Okay, next. Lashon Hara. We're all familiar with Lashon. Are we all familiar with Lashon Hara? How? How did you get so? Okay, whatever. So I want to give you a brief rundown. Lashon Hara is anything that you say that's harmful or negative, either way. Is that relative or objective? What do you think? Harmful or negative? Do you think those are relative terms or objective terms? Totally relative. So if you're talking about somebody who, let's say, doesn't care at all about her appearance, saying to another person, she gained a lot of weight, may not be either harmful or humiliating. But for somebody who cares, it's terrible. So you have to put yourself in the social reality that people live in.
Wouldn't it still be wrong to say regardless?
It isn't good to say, but the difference between one case and another is real. Okay. What's the exception, though? So the exceptions are rules. I want to make myself clear. Either you have to say the negative or harmful information, or you're not allowed to. There's really no middle space. Where somebody will be harmed if they don't know the negative or harmful information, you're obligated to say it. Okay, there's not much middle space. Either you're not allowed to say it, or you're obligated to say it. When are you obligated? So as I said, when somebody will be harmed, either the person to whom you're speaking or the person about whom you're speaking. Sometimes they need to be spoken about. So here are some examples. Okay, let's say there's somebody who tells you that they're being treated by Dr. Cohen. And your experience, he doesn't have a good reputation. But there are conditions before you say anything else. How do you know what you heard about him is true? Is it current? Okay. In addition to that, you would have to ask more questions. Okay. Did the person who told me this information about Dr. Cohen, is that somebody we trust, like two sworn witnesses? Is the person really going to go to Dr. Cohen, or is she just flapping the name around? Is there a way that I could discourage her from this without actually blackening his name? Just like saying, I really don't recommend this. Okay? But if all of the conditions are filled, you have to tell them. Okay, not you could tell them, you have to tell them. So here's where people go wrong. In the times you have to help somebody by giving them the truth, that's where people become very frum and don't speak Lashon Hara. Okay, random scandals will... Okay. So this is especially true when somebody has been introduced to somebody else and they may marry them. If you knew information that could harm married life, not just you don't like the person, and the information you heard came from somebody who's very reliable or you know it personally, and you tell the person discreetly, and you don't say more than you have to just say or exaggerate it, and there's no other way around it, then you have to tell them. What happens when you don't? You make victims. We actually had something, this happened in Neve years ago. There was a shidduch that looked perfect. She was 35, she's a physician, and somebody made a shidduch between a relatively young man, he's 40, also a doctor, a surgeon in fact. Very charming, lots of money, both of them really frum. Sounds good, no? Okay, now they had both been divorced, and she knew it, and he knew it. They forgot to mention to her that he had been divorced 4 times. She only knew about the most current divorce. So what do you think the end of the story is? 5th divorce. Okay. But, Hashem is always in the picture. The real end of the story for her is that after that she was devastated by the divorce, as you could imagine. Someone suggested to her a shidduch that she otherwise would not have considered. A rabbi in the old city who was widowed, who has lots of little children, she married him. The kids regard her the way the dwarfs viewed Snow White. Everything she does is good, they love her. He loves her. She's very happy. So you could see there are patterns we don't see. But we have to see that we are on the side of the angels, and we have to give information, we have to be honest. Okay, clear? Okay, speaking random Lashon Hara, which has no purpose, because you think everyone should. Do you know everyone? You're familiar with everyone? They're first cousins with anyone. Like, there's anyone knows this, but everyone, okay. Telling negative things about people because everyone should know is never a good idea. Does that make sense to you? Okay, next. You just see where we're holding, we're okay. You're still alive, you're still awake? Okay, so we're up to Maris Ayin. Maris Ayin means giving bad appearance. Okay, so you could say, look, why shouldn't people judge me favorably? So what if I give a bad appearance by doing something unseemly? What's Maris Ayin? Here it is on Shabbos, let's say, and you have to be Machalel Shabbos for a permitted reason. Okay, so if, for instance, it's a medical thing, so it's okay to go. You should go. But in terms of talking about it randomly, you wouldn't believe the view from the hills in Karim. I was just there on Shabbat. It was really amazing. What does the person think? They think that you think breaking Shabbos is nothing. So you have to be careful with Maritai not giving a bad impression. Why? So I want to digress for a moment and talk to you about collective consciousness. Okay, women in general like to learn psychology. How many of you have learned psychology, like psychology, are therapists? Okay. Well, there are some of you who are not, I'm shocked, or whatever. Okay, so you might remember Jung. Remember Jung? So among the things he would talk about is collective consciousness. That means if you see something many times, it becomes your normal. So I want to illustrate this to you. You might remember there was a man, his name was Dahmer, I think his last name was, who was a cannibal. Do you remember him? Dahmer. Okay. Meaning he didn't murder his victims. He found them wherever, in the morgues, whatever. But they discovered in his freezer, not leg of lamb, but leg of individuals. Okay, clear? He was a cannibal. How many of you find this unbelievably horrific? Okay, now think. Which does more harm? Eating the limb of a person who in any case is dead, or speaking Lashon Hara? Speaking Lashon Hara is much more harmful, but it's part of our normal. It's what in physics you would call the event horizon. It's our normal. So when you do something that seems wrong, you contribute to the negativity of the social climate in which you live. So things that should scandalize don't scandalize. So this is what's wrong with Marit Ayin. That makes sense to you? Okay, moving on. Okay, Ser Svatenu, discussions of our lips. Okay, so Rambam talks about, you're all familiar with this, in Pirkei Avot it says silence good. It's a virtue. Silence is a virtue. Okay, I should get more silent. We're ending. Okay, so I'm going to end with silence as our last topic. Okay, so people say things and later regret it. Silence is a virtue. That's what it says in Pirkei Avot. So Rambam, when he talks about, and when should you speak? So he gives us a few examples of when talking is good. First one, information. Somebody says, how do you get from here to Hashmonaim? Don't say, okay, use words and enough words and you have to make yourself clear. However, with teaching, as opposed to specific information, you're supposed to be concise so you don't cause your students to die of boredom. Okay, did you ever see student death, or any of you teach? Or here's the pad with the doodles. Okay, so don't bore your students, be quieter. Next, and here are the last two that I'll talk about. One is what I'll call, use a modern word, filler. That's when you feel awkward if there's silence, so you just fill it. Ask a girl of 16 whether she thinks black sneakers are going to make white sneakers a thing of the past. Okay? Could you answer? They will, right? Okay. Okay. So for a certain kind of girl, could you get a half hour worth of answer? Like white looks like so cool, but like black is like so much. Okay. So that's filler. Why do people use filler? So his thesis is to avoid real communication. Filler is an escape from communication because people often don't want to say what they're really thinking and feeling. And the last kind is communication that's inspiring or positive, which you should use liberally. Okay, so that's it for now. Look what tshuva you've done. You got halfway through the Vidui. Okay, by next year we'll do, okay? We'll all be perfect. Okay.